Hello, my aspiring game developers out there. It is Dan, bringing you the new and improved Unity 5 tutorial series. Basically, anyone who's been around long enough will remember that I did a Unity 3D tutorial series about a year ago. Uh, Quite a few things have changed since then in the syntax for the programming, and I just feel like doing a revamped version of this tutorial series where I have a designated target that we're going to be working towards will be a much better way of producing a tutorial series rather than just kind of going as I went along. Now, before I get started, first things first, I will take suggestions from anyone who has any questions. If you want me to do a specific topic, please comment in the section below. I will be more than willing to, if in fact it is something that I personally would be willing to to teach you. If it's not something that I find to be a little tedious or not overly useful, I will do a video on it. And if you have any questions about how to do anything, I do my best to respond to these as quickly as possible. But before you comment asking specific questions, please make sure that your code is 100% accurate to the script that I typed in itself. Just because I usually get a lot of, hey, this isn't working. Why is that? Did you remember to do this? Oh, no. I mean, mistakes happen, I guess. It's just, please try to make sure that your script is in order first before doing any of that. But if, for instance, you're trying to, I don't know, customize the script and you run into problems, I'd be more than willing to help. So, topic for the first video. Well, more or less what we're going to be doing for this project. So, we're going to be making some sort of first-person shooter, and that's kind of what the last tutorial series was, but in this specific one, we're going to be going and creating like a full-fledged FPS, not just, here's this specific week's topic, throw it at you sort of thing. We're actually going to try to make one. It'll be very basic. We're not anticipating, AAA standards here. We're probably going to be making it a bunch of cubes shooting cubes, which will work, I guess. It's all basically just making the gameplay itself rather than making it look pretty. So, first things first, we need to make a player. So, obviously, you can't really have a game without some sort of player control. Granted, there might be a few exceptions out there, but for the most part, most games have some sort of player. So we need to actually create one. So how are we going to do this? First things first, anyone who has installed Unity or whatever, this isn't going to be a tutorial series where I'm explaining a lot of the code syntax. I will, if you guys find it necessary, let me know in the comment section below. But for the most part, this is meant to be more of an intermediate tutorial series, more for people who understand a little bit more about the programming and how the program works itself, rather than me being like, yeah, this is a variable, this is what a variable does, it does this stuff, So that's kind of where I'm coming from on this. So we have our scene here, just basically a brand new project. For organization purposes, I'm going to go ahead and create a few folders. First folder is going to be scripts. Our next folder is going to be prefabs. It's basically all we're going to need. Again, this is going to be a sort of intermediate, but more on the beginner side of tutorial series, so we will be using JavaScript instead of C#. If you want C#, I probably could do a parallel tutorial series to this for the more advanced user, but I mean, that's all based upon how you guys want this to work. So we're going to go ahead and go to create JavaScript, and we'll just name this player. Just name it player, because we're probably going to put all of the player-related items inside of the script itself. So go ahead and double-click and open that. Now, mono develop will be your standard thing, and hopefully it opens relatively quickly, because it's awkward sitting here when it does not open. There we go. Alright. Hopefully it doesn't crash. For some reason mine has a tendency to crash sometimes. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and close all these extra scripts for a completely different project I'm working on. Uh, so what you're going to do is you're going to just completely remove everything that was already in the player script just because we don't really need it. So what we're going to want are our few variables. We want a variable for speed. So this is going to be the speed at which the player moves, and we're going to set that equal to a float. And we're going to set that at 5 to start. All of these will be probably changed as we're sort of rounding the features of the game out. So then we're going to want a variable for move horizontal, and this is going to be a vector 3, which we're going to set equal to vector 3 dot 0. And we're basically going to create the same thing, but instead for horizontal, it's going to be vertical. And it's the same vector 3, which is equal to vector 3 dot 0. So, and then after that, we're going to need some sort of negative force, for instance, like gravity. So we could just call it gravity, since that's probably the easiest thing to call it. And that too will be a float, which we'll say equal to 10 to start. And that's all of the variables we're going to actually need. So what we need now is the main function we're going to use to store all of this and call whatever we need to call. And for that will be function update. This is a function called by the script every frame during the game. So if we want something to be continuously happening, this is where we put it, in this function. First things first, we're going to create a separate var. Now the reason why we're putting this variable in here is because we want it to only be accessed inside of the function update. We don't want it to be accessed by everything else. We could put it up with the rest of the stuff, but it's a little bit easier to just store it inside of here, so that way we can work with it this way. So we're going to need the trying to think of an, yeah, here we go, player controller, which is going to be equal to a character controller. I'm going to set that equal to transform. Actually, we probably will want one more variable, and I'm just going to put it up above speed just because this is where I usually put this variable. We're going to create a variable for player, which I'll explain this in a second. It just makes this easier for in the future. And we're going to create a new function. Sorry about this, guys. Just thought of it right now. We create function start. Now, the difference between function start and function update is function update is called every frame. Function start is called during the first frame, so it is only called once. So we're going to set, inside of here, we're going to set player equal to transform. So there we go. And if we go ahead and just replace this transform with player, now instead of having to type out transform all the time and it being a little bit confusing, we'll be able to call player instead of transform. And what this is going to do is, in the function start, player is going to be set equal to transform at the beginning of the game. And now our transform is the object that we're putting this script on. So the transform is sort of the physical side of the thing in the game, the object. And so what we're doing is we're setting our player variable equal to its person, so to speak, if that makes any sense. So down here, player.get component. Now, one thing that changed between the last version of Unity and this newer version, is you can no longer just do the parentheses and then the quotations on the inside to call for whatever you're looking for. You actually have to do it a different way now. So, trying to remember exactly I can't remember if there was a, pretty sure it's this. So, player.get component, actually, no, that is not there. All right, sorry about that, guys. Then we're going to call for our character controller, and then two parentheses, dot, oh, no, there we go. So, we've created a separate variable inside of our function update, which is going to basically allow us to store the character controller inside this variable, and we can call this for getting the player to move. So next we're going to go down, and if we're going to create an if statement. Now, most of you are coming to this, you probably already know what an if statement is. It's basically if so-and-so is true, then all of this happens. It's the easiest way to explain it. So we're going to take our newly created variable, the player controller, we're going to put it inside of here, and we're going to do dot is grounded. Sorry about not typing 100% accurately, but I'm cold and I'm wearing gloves, so this is interesting. So what we're doing here is if our character controller is grounded, so if it is touching some sort of object, so it can basically, this will make more sense once I finish the code. So we're going to do move horizontal equals vector 3 input dot get axis quotations, and then here we're just going to do horizontal. So this is calling something from the input class called horizontal, comma 0, comma 0. Below that, we're going to type move horizontal again is equal to player dot capital T in transform for this specific thing, transform direction move horizontal. And then below that, we're going to do move horizontal is multiplied and equal to speed. So this is going to cover moving horizontally, so moving from left to right. And so basically, the way this is set up is either by the arrow keys or by the WASD keys. We will move to the left and to the right. And it's just multiplying it by our speed, so we actually move. Now we're going to do the same thing basically for this, except we're going to replace it with the vertical. So I'm just going to copy this, and I'm going to replace horizontal with vertical. One thing you're going to need to learn is if you're going to be a programmer, you really need to learn how to basically make it as quick and as efficient as possible. So we're going to change the input.getAxis to vertical, and then we're going to copy this, remove it, type 0 in its place, and then the last one, the last 0, we replace it with our input.getAxis vertical. So this is going to cover moving forward and backward. Now outside of the if statement, so below the second to last parenthesis, we're going to do, helps if I type it right, player controller dot move horizontal multiplied by time dot delta time. We're going to do the same thing for our other one. So player controller dot move vertical multiplied by time dot delta time. And then below that we have just a few more things to type. Move horizontal. I'm trying to type this from around my microphone stand, so sorry if this is being a little iffy right now. I ordered a microphone actual like thing. I'll actually do a video on my desk office setup after it comes in. So I'm just trying to type it around what I have set up right now, and it's not working too well. So move horizontal dot y minus equals gravity multiplied by time dot delta time. And then we're going to do the same for move vertical. Dot y minus equals gravity multiplied by time dot delta time. So that is basically it for the script. Now, I did mention that I was going to explain this a little bit better. If the player is grounded, so if the player is touching something that is considered the ground, so for instance, if he's standing on top of like a playing surface, then he can move around. All other times, we're going to be basically calling for the gravity, so that if he isn't touching the ground, we'll always be being pulled downwards so we can move again once we hit the ground. So we have gravity set up, we have movement set up, and that's basically it for this. We're going to go ahead and minimize. Oop. We got an error in here. Line 12. All right, let's see exactly what this is. So one of the nice things about Unity is when there is an error inside of your script, it will tell you where the error is. It won't tell you what the error is, more or less, but it will tell you that there's an error in the specific spot. So if we go ahead and let's put that there and see if that fixes it. Yep, I was unsure whether that was supposed to go there, but apparently it does. So that is that solved. Now if we go ahead and minimize our script, return back into Unity, and we're going to go ahead and create our player real quick. So this is just going to be something super simple. We're going to create a capsule. We're going to name him player because that's super simple. Move him to the 0, the origin point. We're going to pull him up a little bit. And let's create a plane to go beneath him. And if we go ahead to our player and drag our script onto him, go ahead and hit play. Oh, yep. I continuously forget this each and every time I do it. We need to go to add component on our player. We're going to type in character controller and add that. Now if we hit play, there we go. As you can see, our player is moving around on this platform. We can't jump, we can only move around, we can't move the camera, and we can fall off the platform. So that is basically it for this tutorial. We're going to move on. In next tutorial, we're going to do sort of a mouse look script so we can actually move our character through the way the mouse is and be able to sort of get a feel for how this FPS is going to work. Now, we might also do a third-person shooter, so instead of it being first person, it might be third person. First person is being used very loosely. We're basically creating a shooter of some sort. So, I'd like to thank you guys for watching, and If you have any suggestions, please comment and leave them in the comment section below. If you like this, like the content, subscribe to the channel. More of this is going to be coming in the future. Other than that, I'd like to thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time. Take care.